Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Product Talk. This is a live Product Talk conversation and a special one because today it's August 13th and we made the announcement of the winners of Q2 Product Awards. More than 70 companies out of thousands of nominees got a chance to be nominated and celebrated. As winners of Q2 product awards at Products That Count. So this is special episode is to have a quick conversation with a few hand-selected advisory council members who were the judges on this quarter product awards. And what we want to do today is to just walk you through a few things. Obviously, as advisory board members, advisory council members who go through these number of nominees and choose the finalists and winners, they get a chance to get firsthand knowledge into what are some of the trends and what some of the things or some of the examples of award-winning companies out there, and how are they differentiating themselves? How are they winning in this race? And this year, this quarter's product award was specific about three categories. So cybersecurity, health tech, and fintech were the focus of this category. And I have to say, of course, cybersecurity, fintech, and healthcare were the focus. There's a lot of AI conversation peppered in. These days, you can't do fintech, health tech, and cybersecurity without AI conversation. So before I jump in and we actually jump into sharing some of those themes and some of those examples of what are the how award-winning companies are doing, let me introduce you to our guest. Curie, thank you so much for taking the time. You're representing the advisory council, advisory board members today, and thank you for spending time with us. So why don't you introduce yourself and we'll jump into our examples and themes right after.
Absolutely, Hoda. What a privilege to be here to represent such esteemed panel of advisory board. I hope I do it justice. Hi, everyone. My name is Kiyuri Anand. I am a product leader in the AI space. Most of my experience has been in the B2B SaaS building SaaS products, even before they were in cloud. So on-prem, then to cloud, and then now I'm at the forefront of another adventure, building AI agentic products, and building it for the legal domain. Very, very excited to be here.
Thank you, Kiri, for being here. And for those of you guys who are either listening live or listening right after, I'll put a link in the show notes and here on the chat, and where you can find the award-winning companies for this quarter. Also, you can see as a scroll in the page, you can see all of our advisory council members, Kiri obviously representing them today, but other advisory council members who are some of the best product leaders out there who are contributing their time and expertise to this community so they can select some of the best companies out there. So get to know them and hopefully get to connect with them on LinkedIn or other social media channel and have a conversation with them. So, Kiri, we have, I want to do two-part conversation. Part one conversation is let's just give a quick debrief on what were the criteria we used for selecting these award-winning companies. The reason I want to tap into that conversation or start that conversation is that it actually helps product leaders to identify what differentiates them. What are the eval criteria that everybody wants to evaluate their company? So maybe we have a quick conversation on that. And then the next step after that, the next conversation would be about some of the examples and some of the themes you've noticed, other advisory board noticed as they evaluated these award-winning companies. And I think that conversation will be very interesting. Before we start recording, you actually had already jumped in and you had some interesting conversation around things like AI employees. And I ask you to hold on the conversation so that we can have this conversation live. So why don't we start with the criteria? Maybe
Sure.
walk me through, and I'll chime in on some of the two or three of the most important criteria that you really looked at. I know we had this framework that we all use to evaluate companies, but maybe walk us through two or three criteria that really matters to you when you evaluate and you want to differentiate a company from a real good company.
Sure. So some of these criteria will not come as a surprise to our listeners because they are what make real good business sense. And good products are, you know, also need to be sold and scaled. So the first criteria was we looked at for every product that was nominated, we looked at their moat and their differentiation. Like, how do they separate themselves? Do they have a sustainable long-term advantage over their competitors? So a lot of different things can come into play. This can be their business model. This can be the actual core technology, their IP. This can be the niche in which they play. That could be their differentiator. There are a lot of ways you slice and dice this, but the idea was we were looking closely for their moat and differentiation. We wanted to make sure they had a strong moat, they had a clear and sustainable. Sustainable becomes very important because in the age of AI, it's very easy to build something fast, but if you can't guarantee long-term success, then those ones were out. If the exclusive partnerships was another one, but that's the idea. The second criteria, we had 5 criteria, by the way. So the second one was the problems that they were solving and the business impact. So the lens that we took here were the good companies were the ones that had a transformation impact, that had a wide scaling impact on the industry that they were representing. They were solving table stakes. They have to solve a real problem. There are many problems to solve, but they have to solve one that is important to solve, right? And so high priority problems, transformational, long-term sustainable separation, as well as big impact. The third was scalability and market potential. So there is such a thing as being too early for a particular market, or idea is great, but I don't know how to make money out of it yet. So those were the ones that we were trying to filter out and see if whatever technology they were using, AI or not, was it a scalable product? Did it have a large addressable market? Was the problem impacting a lot of people who would be willing to pay for you to solve this problem? And was it cost effective to actually grow and not be bogged down by, like, if the cost of acquiring a customer or sustaining a customer is too high and it compounds every time you get a customer, eventually you will have too many customers. So those were filtered out. The fourth one was data privacy and regulatory compliance. This criteria we look at in almost all of our product awards, but this one especially because you're dealing with fintech, you're dealing with health tech and cyber. This one had, you asked me which one I looked at the most. This one was one of the most weighted ones for this cycle, primarily because of the domains we were analyzing. And for this, the clear winners came out to be ones that were not just doing bare minimum to comply. That, like, compliance wasn't a box that they were ticking. They were truly exceeding standards. They were industry leading in not just what they were compliant for, but also how, and if they had a clear IP in how they solved compliance problems, then they stood out as a winner. Like, these companies that won needed to be a beacon of compliance and safety in order to survive in this category. And then the last one, which is also really important to guarantee your company's long-term success, is the strength of their team. Who is the founding team? Are they venture backed? Who are basically building the products? What are the type of people that are building the products, advising the builders? Who is at the helm of the company? So we looked at a lot of this, and if they had a strong track record. We didn't quite filter out first time founders, but if they had a longer track record, then they were obviously, that item was obviously looked at. If they were first time founders, but they had specific domain expertise, because they, like, if they are a doctor and founded a company in health tech, or if they, for example, then those would also get a few extra points. That's
Excellent.
kind of the, yeah, framework that we used.
Well said. You went through it very well. So those 5 categories: moat and differentiator, problem solving and business impact, the scalability, um, yes, privacy and regulatory, and then team strength and ability to execute. Those were some of the 5. I know Jay, our one of our second out of the 10, 12 advisory council members, Jay was also one of the colleagues for Curie, and he joined us. So Jay, welcome. Maybe you want to give us a quick introduction. Your camera is off. If you want to turn on your camera, if you could, Quick introductions to yourself. Thank you for joining. And Kiri just walked us through the 5 criteria we use to select the award winner companies that were announced today. I'd like to ask the question from you, which one of these was maybe your favorite, or in a way, what was the most important one you gave the most weight as you were evaluating the companies? And right after, we're going to jump into some of our key trends and themes that we observed.
Sure. Huda, am I audible and visible? Just a quick check.
You're audible and visible, so very good. Let's go.
Okay. So Kayuri and I were same part of the same group, so the methodology was same. So I will save some time and not reiterating those points. But what stood out to us, I was just going through the entire list, and there are a couple of products which we have shortlisted were part of our cohort. For one of the few things which really mattered was verticalization, because of the access to AI to everyone now. There is a lot of generic nature set of features which are being pushed in the market at the moment. So what stood out for us was how deep you are in your particular vertical, and how specifically you are solving the problem. So that's one part in all the products which we have shortlisted and have been further shortlisted up in the overall list, mattered to us. We also realized some of them are solving very specific problem. Say for instance, one of our products was tokenization wizard. Now it's a very upcoming and a futuristic technology in the space of infrastructure. So that's one point and one major aspect which we made a note of. The other is the vertical specialization. The third aspect which we look into was something which is not easier to replicate. If you are deeply in vertical and if you're solving a very specific problem with regards to zero trust or tokenization, it's that's where the moat is coming from. These technologies are not easier to build. They becomes even more difficult, but if you're building on the infrastructure side of the things. So the other aspect was the embedded infrastructure, how deeply you are into the infrastructure of in your where does your product fits in the entire customer life cycle, be it in B2B or B2C. So these were the core pointers we kept in mind, in addition to what from a mode perspective, from a team perspective. So that was the second order classification which we did. Some of the products which we shortlisted are also well funded, and they have got a solid path to revenue, so to say. So these are the major pointers we kept in mind: vertical, infrastructure, solving specific problem, scalability of the problem, and path to revenue was taken into consideration.
Very nice. Thank you, Jay, for iterating that, specifically to your point, having that scalability, the last point, the scalability and revenue, and be able not only just innovate product, but actually have paths to scalability in terms of revenue is important. Some of the folks may know you too. I'm sure you already know. So the reason we call it the company products that count, it's because we truly believe there's only hand selected group of companies out there that truly count, and we define what products that count as a product that has 3 criteria. And I'll tell you why it actually inspired me to share this, because it's really what you were just sharing. The products that truly count is a product that engages its users in a way, kind of engages emotionally or intellectually, but it has ways to engage a user. It's a product that solves people's problem and enriches their life. So even if it's a B2C or B2B product, when you solve someone's problems, you enrich their life. And then the third one is a product that actually commercially counts. So it's like scalable from a commercial point of view. So it's not only counted that matters in your life, but it counts from a dollar point of view. So that's why it obviously matters when we're evaluating companies or products to be products that are award winners. We definitely look at all those 3. So with that segue, let's jump into 3 to 5 themes or trends that we've observed as what differentiates an award-winning company from a non-award-winning company. Obviously, we had a lot of nominations, but quite a few stood out. And I want to start from sort of like go backward in, because you talked about, Jay, I'll turn this question to you. You talked about the founders and, or maybe Kiri, you talked about the founders and the team behind these companies. So maybe walk me through what was very unique. What was the trend that comes about founders, their skills and their knowledge that differentiated some of these companies from some of the award-winning companies from the other ones?
So there was one company, and I'll find the name in a second. The founder had been working in cyberspace for a very long time, 20 plus years of experience, and his work wasn't just limited to the space in the sense that he was working for one organization. Throughout the course of his career, he was working with many different companies, and he was going around implementing security and making other products secure, other companies' infrastructure secure for 20 years. So he had a vast variety of experience in the domain, not just length, but a lot of like not just quantity, but a lot of varying different qualities of experience. And when somebody with that level of depth in a specific domain goes on to build a product for that domain, like that they've seen it all. So that product is going to truly have a different level of nuance. Now, being on the other side of it, it could be a big burden or a roadblock as well, right? There is such a thing as too much, and you go around in circles. But truly, I will look up that name in a second, but truly that was one of the things that stuck out to me, and it made me think, like, if somebody with that level of experience builds a product in that space, they know a lot of what will and won't work, because they were implementing, making the secure other companies. So they've kind of done this in a way via providing service, and now they are productizing that service. It's like that. So
that makes a lot of sense. I think we notice a lot of domain expertise. I think Jay mentioned, you mentioned it. It's now award-winning companies are not the companies who, especially in the AI era, somebody mentioned it's not a fairy dust of AI that you have to sprinkle on your product and it's not, oh, we have AI features, but it's actually leveraging your specific domain expertise in using AI or any other technology you're using to solve very particular and specific problems. I remember we had, as advisory council, we had the conversation around maybe it's just too specialized, because you think in order to scale the companies, you kind of want to solve some of the biggest problems and you don't want to do too much of a specialization. But it actually sounds like that's the trend right now. The award-winning companies that are very successful are really particular about the problem they're solving, and the founders and the humans behind it are actually particular domain experts in that category. Jay, do you want to add anything on that domain expertise, verticalization and specialization in between the award-winning companies?
Certainly. I was just looking through the set of the companies between, Kayuri and me, and which one were very specific. Um, some of the companies which are working in the compliance and security aspect, if you go back to their founding team, they have been at it for years now. In their previous, startups which they have built, scaled, and exited in some of the cases, very specific to payment, very specific to compliance. So, when you look at their profile also, right, some of them are solving exactly a problem for NGO, right? Now, if they're solving a problem for NGO, you need to understand the flows, how the NGO works, and the level of nuances that are there are taken into consideration. Now, one way is to you read through the things and you build a product, right? It's very easy. But there are very specific instances which you will learn only when you have experienced that problem, right? Either your first startup, or you were a customer or a consumer of those services, or you were already working in that sector and then you decided, to build a product because you found a problem. So that's what I call a founder product fit, which is very deep in these companies which are scaling at the moment, and which are promising startups from the set of the cohorts. So yes, domain expertise counts a lot,
Yes,
and
that's well said.
that shines through the product, the way the product is being built and the problems that are getting solved.
That's well said. Thank you, Jay. So beyond obviously founder product fit and domain expertise, we've seen a lot of ways these companies differentiated themselves. And two that stood out was one, because this was all about security and health tech and fintech, there's a lot of regulations, obviously, and compliance required. But we saw the what we saw in terms of the trend or in terms of common theme between these award-winning companies is that they're actually take it very seriously and they're using their unique ways that they're solving these problems as a differentiator. So I kind of want to walk through and have a conversation with both of you. If we say compliance and security being the main differentiator of these companies, can you walk us through some of the examples you've noticed around how these companies leverage regulation and compliance as a way to differentiate themselves? And whoever wants to go in, please jump in.
I can go because as you said that, something came to mind right away. We assessed this company called CloudBrink, and I was really impressed with the way. So their differentiator is that they do moving target defense. They rotate security certifications every 8 hours, and they do it. They do it with like spinning up thousands of POPs using AI generated acceleration. And this is hyper agile, right? They're continuously monitoring this. And I think from a compliance perspective, that was nuanced, that was different because they're trying to do this in a safe and secure manner. And I thought that was really a unique way in which they do it. I remember going down a rabbit hole reading about it a lot, just to make sure I was understanding what they do correctly. Um, I don't want to bore you with all the technical details, but if anybody listening is curious and interested, you should totally look them up.
That's awesome. Actually, it kind of reminds me that one of the reasons that product leaders like yourself join the advisory council is exactly for going down these rabbit holes, because you get a piece of like idea here or a company that you get exposed to, and then you go down the rabbit hole, and then at the end of it, you come out maybe delighted, excited, or learn something very new that we would have not gotten a chance to do that. So I'm glad that you shared that experience. It's this part
Yeah,
of fun.
my ROI on all the time I invest vetting these companies is that I get to learn a lot as I go through the process. So that's my vested interest in doing this.
I love it. By the way, say a quick tangent on it. If you want to join our advisory council members, you can go to products.com.org, and on the top there is a button, or there's a page for advisory council, and you have to submit your interest. And we obviously love to hear from you. But it sounds like from what Kiri just shared, there's definitely a high ROI for joining the advisory council and be the judges on the awards program and many other committees that both Jay and Kiri are part of. Jay, anything specific from you about, or any specific company example that stood out for you that really used compliance and regulatory as a differentiator for themselves?
Most of the companies, right, again, because it's a fintech and the health tech, right, you are dealing with the PII of the individual. These are very, either financial or health records, and they're quite sacrosanct. So when you build this product, right, and we observe the same trend, the companies which we dropped, even though they were the part of the domain, but they were not compliant. SOC 2 compliance, HIPAA compliance, and the domain specific, like, PCI standards, that have to be taken into consideration. So that's one thing. It's like, it's not an entry barrier of sorts. It's a qualification criteria for you to operate in these domains. So that's one thing, which was common in all the shortlisted companies. They all are compliant, and some of are in the process of getting compliant. So they have mentioned on their website that they are getting compliant. The other thing is that, from a product approach perspective, also we went through some of the workflows which the companies have, kind of baked in. If you go through that flow, you will realize that, they are compliant. It's a compliant first product. Compliance is not an afterthought. Compliance is taken into consideration. So when you have a compliance, right, so the product which operate in a compliance domain, be it healthcare or fintech, they always work in these boundary conditions
Mm.
where you have to ensure that the user experience is taken into consideration, but at the same time, you are also ensuring that you are following the laws of the land. So that's the critical balance when you go through these flows. In some of them is stark difference, and it cuts above the rest. The products which participated. So
Yes,
that's one of the core point which I observed.
that makes a lot of sense. In a way, I remember reading through some of the answers by companies around leveraging user experience in order to still follow the compliance. So there was a lot of examples that companies are spending time on improving the user experience. And we know like compliance could add friction, but how would you introduce those friction in a way that it doesn't feel like friction, but it's an important and it's an interesting way of designing product where they're dealing with compliance and identity and regulatory aspect. So I remember seeing a lot of that focusing on minimizing friction, but it's still embedding compliance into their product. So I want to bring the last, almost maybe a last theme that I want to talk about, and then I want to give each of you a chance to tell me about one surprise theme that we haven't yet talked about. But the last theme that really stood out for me was around differentiating yourself by focusing on being embedded into ecosystem of your customers. Well, obviously, again, because it's health tech, it's fintech, and it's cybersecurity. But these companies are from day one, they try to build stickiness in a way to their product by embedding themselves into the ecosystem of their clients. And by the nature of being embedded, it's very difficult to replace them once you're like part of a big organization's infrastructure.
True.
And so I'd love for you to share maybe an example or share your point of view around this sort of being embedded into the an ecosystem. And we actually, if you remember, some of you were, maybe both of you were the award advisory board on Q1 product when we were looking at AI and data companies, and we almost saw the same thing being integrated into ecosystem. Sounds like one of the most important criteria for winning companies. But maybe walk me through. Maybe Jay, I start from you. Can you walk us through some of the examples of some of the things that have stood out for you when it comes to being embedded into an ecosystem?
Yeah, so being embedded, one is like either you hold the data of the PII of the individual, right? So if I look from a customer point of view, or if I'm a B2B, then from a B2B enterprise point of view, if my entire data of the customer base, including the PII, even though it is tokenized and encrypted, is residing on my vendors, workflows, it becomes really difficult for me to move the entire data, right?
Mhm,
So that's
mhm,
one of the aspect which is consistent. So if you see rainforest, as a payment as a service which is there, it is so deeply embedded, or it has also feature of being getting embedded and digging further into the customer flow, that once you are used to it, you it's very difficult for anyone to move out of that. So that's one. The other is, we talked about the verticalization, the flows. Once you have kind of mastered these flows around a particular domain, and in this case again it was a not for profit embedded software, how the entire process, the workflows which are very particular to you, very nuanced to you, you have built this. So even though we say that it's a SaaS software, but when you build for a particular domain, when you build for a particular set of the customers, there's a lot of specialization, there are a lot of features, nuances which gets baked in. Now if you are a customer, the end customer, be it as an enterprise, or say for instance if you're a B2C product where there is a personalization, you would find it very difficult to move your entire data, your history. And then there is a convenience versus convenience versus more of being sticking to that product.
mm, mm,
So that's one thing which I've observed largely in the case of payment provider, that is Rainforest payment as a service. The other is, as I said, NGO for not for profit embedded infrastructure.
yeah,
So that's
awesome.
one, right? Because you have developed a subject matter expertise, it's very hard to replace. Anyone who is coming from outside trying to build the same thing will not have the insights. He has not gone through the journey of building the product and platform, talking to the customers, feeling the real pain, and then improvising the product based on the customer feedback loop. That
Mm,
is irreplaceable. There is no shortcut for that.
absolutely. Uh, Kiri, do you want to share your perspective, add on top of what Jay just shared?
I was actually looking through the comments in the interest of representing other award members, and a fellow advisory board member, Stephanie, also called out rainforest pay. And I've heard Jay talk a lot about rainforest pay, but I think it payment is one space where you can actually see payment processing spans so many different industries that it's easy to embed a service in other people's workflows, like whether it's insurance or even health services or banking or even e-commerce, right? But beyond that, right, having products, I don't have an example that comes off the top of mind from the winner category, but this is one thing that I've noticed, not just in the awards, but beyond as well, is that when you're embedding your service so much in the actual existing workflow, and a important workflow that's actually delivering outcomes for the customer, that truly increases a lot of stickiness. And you are going to like be there, right? Because the workflow is useful, it solves a key problem for the customer, and if you're part of that workflow inherently, if your product is or offering is part of that workflow inherently, then it makes your moat that much stronger. We were looking at this one company called Code Zero, and that's the company I was talking about, founders having a decent amount of experience, 20 plus years of experience. So Code Zero actually does what they're actually doing is they do ensure privacy and security in the testing of AI models. So if you're a company building AI models, their product actually helps you test those AI models in a safe and secure way. So I'm using them as an example because they are not reinventing a workflow. AI companies are already having these workflows. They already have these workflows whereby they need to, on a continuous basis, test and fine tune and improve the models and then retest and evaluate those models. And they're plugging themselves in the middle of a very key workflow that is going to be required for years to come. We are only just getting started with the models, but we are going to see incumbents, the big ones like Google and OpenAI, going to continue to train their AI models and improve them over years and years to come, right? That's not going to stop. And by Code Zero strategically embedding themselves inside of that workflow, I think that gives them an edge.
That's well said. It kind of triggered this thought that when you build B2C companies, a lot of times you try to work for a network effect. You are trying to create from day one, you try to create network effect. Meaning, for example, when a user, every additional user that is added to the network, to the base, it will create additional benefit for the rest of the organization, sorry, the rest of the users. Therefore, it's a network effect, right? So by adding more users in the B2C, B2B context, this notion of build to be embedded into your customer's ecosystem is actually a way to differentiate yourself. So it's almost like B2C companies look for networking effect, and B2B companies look for and being embedded. And that's a very unique way that you could optimize and build your product from day one to be able to, not be replaceable, basically.
Like, yeah, I mean, I can talk more about this, but we can move on.
You'd love to talk more about it. I think Jay wants to add something too as well. Maybe we hear from Jay, and then we'll wrap up with us last
Yeah.
conversation around the surprising themes and companies. Jay, go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Hoda. So, one thing, the term which I have been kind of evangelizing at the moment is called creative compliance when you're working in the regulatory domain. One aspect we have to keep in mind is that compliance will always supersede the convenience. That's there is nothing, paramount to compliance. And while the products which are getting built in this space, we also have to think through that the entry barriers for the companies or for the products which are solving for these domains is extremely high. Say for instance, if you have to work with a banking partner, depending upon which part of the world you are, it will take you to 6 to 18 months to onboard yourself as a partner into that ecosystem. Now that 18 months of cycle of passing all the regulatory checks, passing all the compliance and security checks, and being in and getting an entry into their landscape itself is a big thing, right? So now anyone, if you have been onboarded after 18 months of evaluation, compliance checks, security checks, convenience point of view, how least disruptive you are to their flows, it's very difficult for anyone, and for the the end companies also to replace you, because they've spent a significant amount of emotional, and financial and intelligent capital on in onboarding you as a vendor, as a product, right? So that becomes a big stickiness factor, even though sometimes if the experience is subpar, it's not up to that mark, and you will observe largely in healthcare and fintech, but still those companies continue to be in that ecosystem, because getting another partner go through the same process of 18 months is going to be extremely difficult and is going to break the business process continuity, so to say.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
that's also one point which I wanted to bring to fore.
That's a really good point. In a way, yes, it's very hard to crack these markets, but once you actually crack it, then it's very hard to get replaced because you went through all that pain that to get compliance and go through the diligence that the companies have to go through in order
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
Hoda, if I may,
Yeah.
before we wrap this up, I want to bring a point from Shani, who's a fellow advisory board member. She said this really nicely. She said, whoever makes themselves a core part of someone else's business model or workflow has the staying power. That's platform thinking, and those are your two horses for success.
Exactly. That's a very good way of summarizing what we've been talking about. And thank you for representing the fellow advisory council members on this call. So let's just wrap up. We have only a couple more minutes left. Each of you maybe share either one company that you were very surprised by or impressed by, or one trend or theme that we didn't talk about, which was very unique, that you want to highlight for fellow product leaders and product managers to learn about. And whoever wants to start, please go ahead and start.
Jay, you talk about the surprise company, and then I will talk about a trend that I want to talk about.
Okay.
Sure. So, I want to talk about this company called, again, Tokenization Wizard, right? Because it's very futuristic. It's not just, it's not just an idea, right? It's a crypto custody, platform, which is, very much, it's very technical, right? They are working on air-gapped vault, UMPC scalability. They already have got $1 billion plus as a vault insurance, and they're also backed by some good companies. They're working in this domain of trade, decentralized finance, and crypto. And they are taking care of all the high value transactions. Now, few years back, this was a kind of a concept in the air. Seeing that implemented now, is something was like quite refreshing. That everyone is not just going after the theme of agentic AI. There are some people who are really building it and built to last. Is one of the common theme, when you are building, because there's so many regulations, crypto wallet, and staying in that domain and building so deeply into that, it was quite refreshing. So for me, GK8 tokenization wizard is a clear fresh find of sorts.
I love that surprise and interesting. You know how they say good founders don't get distracted and focus on their core skills or core problem. This is a classic example. The rest of the world is all talking about AI, and a lot of people don't want to talk about crypto. But if you do really solve a real problem and you have a really good product and can focus on it, you actually can go places. So great example, Jay. Thank you for bringing that up. Curie, you have a surprise theme for us.
Yes. So it's actually a little bit going back on what Jay initially mentioned about verticalization. But there is this company called Autonomize, and it's not just with Autonomize, but I've seen this trend emerging lately. Is this so what they're doing, Autonomize employs multi-agent orchestration, and they bundle specialized AI agents that collaborate with each other and handle distinct functions like data retrieval or decision making, compliance, trying to almost mirror human intelligence or human brain modularity. We are not quite there yet in terms of AI. We don't have AGI yet. We're not quite there yet where these can just do everything autonomously, but we are fairly close. And I'm seeing this idea of building what you call AI teammates in a lot of different domains. And especially because this theme is with fintech and health tech and cyber, all of them are B2B space primarily, right? And so that's why I brought this up, because this theme where you see a lot of the back office work, like say something like payment processing or something like invoice generation. A healthcare facility needs to generate invoices, a bank needs to generate invoices, an insurance company needs to generate invoices. These are like transcendent things that are consistent across the board. So you will see companies like Autonomize who will come up with these AI agents or groups or fleet of AI agents that do one thing really, really well. So you might see a company that will do like all of your invoicing workflows, and they will generate the bill, they will send out the bill, they will watch for money coming in, they will allocate the money where it needs to go, they will do collections, they will do proactive prediction of a certain account becoming past due and do reminders. All of those things is stuff that is either already out there and seeking adoption slowly, or actively being worked on. So I see that for like 2026, that's going to be a big trend. That's my prediction.
Prediction, surprise and prediction at the same time. AI employee, AI teammate, which is great. I gotta talk to Autonomize, and we could use the product like that and sort of automate some of our operations here. I'll share my surprise, and then we'll wrap up and celebrate the winners. To me, it's like a B2C company called Arrow, and what they did is very interesting because traditionally, when you create credit score, it's about what you actually do from a transactional point of view. You pay your credit card, you pay your bill, you don't apply for too many credit cards, you don't use too much of your credit. Those are like hard stuff. But then your behavior, sticking to your budget and learning about financial literacy, those things are actually lagging early indicators of you having a great credit score. Because when you improve your knowledge, if you stick to your budget, you end up having a really good financial life. But they never come in, especially for folks who are building their credit at the beginning, they've never been seen by traditional credit scores. So this company, Arrow, basically collects all that data about your financial behavior and leverages that to be able to show that your credit worthiness is higher than what your actual hard transactions. Maybe you don't have any credit card, but you're actually learning about budget, you're saving, you're sticking to your budget. Those are really good indicators of you being a really high credit worthiness, have a really high credit worth, but its tradition hasn't been seen. So to me, I'm coming from fintech background, some of you may know, so to me, this was just refreshing and delightful to look at some of the alternative ways of generating data and really solve some of the important problems for companies. So congratulations to Ara, Autonomize, Tokenization Wizard, Rainforest, Code Zero. Those are some of the companies that this group actually highlighted, but they're among another 70-something award winners for Q2 product awards by Products Account. Congratulations to everyone, and thank you to Kiyuri and Jay, who represented our panel of judges, our advisory council members. Your work actually made this possible, and these winners are getting recognized out there because of your work. So thank you so much for your time and effort, and thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Hoda. It was a pleasure.
Thanks,
Have a great day. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Kiyuri. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.